The life of Daniel. Daniel, the priest of Baal. After the death of the king Ascetius, Cyrus of Persia took over his kingdom. Daniel was one of the King Cyrus' closest companion, and King thought more highly of Daniel than of any other of his advisors. The Babylonians had an idol named Baal. Each day the people had to provide Baal with an offering of 12 bushels of fine flour, 40 sheep, and 50 gallons of wine. King Cyrus believed that Baal was God, and each day he used to go and worship it. But Daniel worshipped his own God. One day, the king asked Daniel, "Why don't you worship Baal?" Daniel answered, "I don't know I do not worship idols made with human hands. I worship only the living God, who create heaven and earth and is the Lord of all mankind. And don't you believe that your God Baal is really alive?" asked the king. Haven't you seen how much he eats and drinks every day?" Daniel laughed and said, "Don't be footed, your majesty. This God you call Baal is nothing more than clay covered with bruise. It has never eaten nor drank anything." At this, the king became angry and called in all 70 of his priests and of Baal. He said to them, "I warn you that you will be put to death unless you can show me that it is Baal who eating this offering. If you prove to me that it is Baal, then I will have Daniel put to death for claiming that Baal is not a god." Daniel agreed to this proposal. Then they all went with the king into Baal's temple, where the priest said to the king, "Your Majesty, we will go out and let you place the food on the table and prepare the wine. When you eat, you may lock the door behind you and seal it with the royal seal. In the morning, when you return, you find that Baal has not eaten everything, you can put it to death. But if he has, Daniel will die for making false accusation against us." But the priests were not worried because they had made a secret entrance underneath a table in the temple so that they could go and every night and eat the offering. When the priest had left, the king set out the food for Baal. Then Daniel ordered his servant to bring some ashes and scatter them, and ordered the floor of the temple. No one except the king saw them do this. After that, they all went out, locked the door, sealed it with the royal seal, and left. That night, as usual, the priests, with their wives and children, came into the temple by the secret entrance and ate all the food and drank all the wine. The king out food for Baal. Early the next morning, the king and Daniel went to the temple. The king asked, "Have the seal been broken, Daniel?" "No, your majesty, they have not been broken," he replied. As soon as the door was opened, the king saw the table and shouted, "You are the great, O Baal! You really are a god." But Daniel began to laugh and said to the king, before you enter the temple, look at the floor and tell me whose footprint you see there." "I see the footprint of men, women, and children," said the king, and he became so angry that he had the priests and their family arrested and brought to him. They showed him the secret door through which they had become at night to eat the food placed on the table. So the king had the priest put to death, and he gave Baal to Daniel, who destroyed the idol and tore down its temple. The word of God. And Daniel, there was also a hag dragon which the Babylonian worshipped. One day the king said to Daniel, "You can tell me that this God is not alive, so worship him." "I worship the Lord," replied Daniel. "He is the only living God. And if your majesty will give me a permission, I will kill the dragon and yours without using a sword or a club. You have my permission," and swear the king. So Daniel took some some fat, and some hire, and boiled them all together. He made cake and out of the mixture and feed them to the dragon. When the dragon ate them, it welled up and burst open. That's the kind of things your Babylonian worship. This said Daniel. When the people of Babylon heard what had happened, they staged an anger demonstration against the king. "The king has become a Jew," they shouted. "First, he destroyed Baal and slaughtered the priest, and now he has killed our dragon." Then went to the king and demanded Daniel handed over to them. "If you refuse to warn the king, we will put you and your family to death." When the king saw that they meant what they said, he was forced to hand Daniel over them. The men drove him into a pit of the lion. Then they left him to the 6 days. Then were 7 lions and pit, and normally they were fed 2 men and 2 sheep each day, but they were given nothing to eat during these 6 days in order to make sure that Daniel would be eaten. At that time, the prophet Habakkuk was in the land of Judah. He had cooked a stove and crumbled bread into it. He was carrying a bowl of it to the men who were out in the field harvesting grain. When an angel of the Lord spoke to him, "Take the food you are carrying and give it to Daniel." who is in Babylon, in a pit of lion. Habakkuk answered, Sir, I have never been to Babylon, and I don't know where is the pit of the lion is. So the angel grabbed the prophets by the hair and took him to the Babylon with the speed of the wind. He set him down near the pit, and the lion, Habakkuk, called out, Daniel, Daniel, God has sent you some food. Here, take it. Then Daniel heard Habakkuk. He prayed, God, you did remember me. You never abandoned those who love you. Then he got up and ate the meal, and God's angel immediately took Habakkuk home. 7 days after Daniel had been thrown to the lion, the king went to the pit and mourned for him. When he got there and took him, there sat Daniel. The king shouted, O Lord, the God of Daniel, how great you are! You alone are God. So pulled Daniel out of the pit and had the men who had tried to kill Daniel thrown into it, and the lion ate them immediately while the king watched. The word of God. Thanks the Lord. See how God saved Daniel? Did you hear that, doctor? Did you hear what I read to you? Did you hear that? Daniel is the impossible, miraculous man.